All right. Attempt number 2. Now we're live. Can you say something, Chris? Attempt
Hello?
number 2.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Now we're live. Can you?
Can you hear me?
Attempt
Hello?
number 2.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. We're good. All right. Oh, took a couple attempts, but we're alive. It is episode 13 of the Grind Mastermind for August the 4th, 2023. Chris, how you doing today?
I'm great. Spending some time in Italy with the family.
Nice.
Still working, but yeah, enjoying some time free as well. What about you, man?
I am in the same place I normally am when we record these episodes because I'm pretty boring and I'm a homebody. But yeah, we just battled through some technical issues. Gotta love it. But here we are. What, August? Summer's flying by, eh?
Yeah.
As it normally
Not
does.
not looking forward to the cold, honestly, but I'll be in Thailand in October for some time, so I'm
Oh.
gonna postpone the heat, the cold for a while.
Well, let's not start talking about the cold just yet, right? I mean, it's still nice here in
Yeah.
August. So, do things slow down for you in the summer, or is it because you're kind of a solopreneur, it really just like
Mm.
it's not as seasonal? It's like, do I have a lot of
Depends.
clients or not?
I remember last year was pretty busy, and this year I tried on purpose to keep most of August kind of lighter,
Right.
freer, just so that I can spend more time with family. So basically, for the next couple of weeks, I'm probably just gonna work on the business. So no, very few client stuff. I have a delivery for one project and a couple of potential new project calls, but apart from that, it's just my own stuff, which is good.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that makes sense. You want to jump right the heck in, just so that everybody knows. Every 2 weeks, Chris and I go live. We do a quick update on the last 2 weeks of our businesses. We set goals for the next 2 weeks. We talk about tools, books, all that fun stuff. Chris, of course, running his copywriting UX agency, and myself working on an immigration tech startup in Canada. So we get a little taste of two different worlds, you know? So, Chris, your goals for this week were to record the first podcast episode, which I know the answer to, but I'll let you talk about it, and transition to the weekly email. Those are the two things I have here.
Yeah, so weekly email, that's done. I posted, I think, the first 3 issues past 3 weeks. That's been going pretty well. I've been getting a couple of subscribers, not sure where from. Maybe from podcasts or from YouTube, I think. So that's pretty good. And I'm seeing the unsubscribe rate also has gone to 0, while before with the daily, obviously, I had a lot more unsubscribes because the
Right.
daily it's a bit more, time consuming. So
It's a little more
I think
polarizing for the reader. They kind of either
yeah,
dig it or they want to get out, I found.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's been going well. It takes me, I write it every Friday and send it out on Fridays. So Friday morning, typically 1 hour, sit there, collect all my thoughts and notes from the week and sit down and write it. So it's pretty convenient and fits pretty well with the routine, with the weekly routine. So far so good.
Nice.
For the podcast that's launched as well. I launched it this week. Was it when it was Wednesday? Yeah, 2 days ago. I think I posted the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, a couple of blocks in the recording process, in the creation process. I kind of had to redo everything, so kind of wasted 2 hours just
Why?
because I
What happened?
realized that so basically I started recording it using the script just because I thought, yeah, it's nice, right? So everything gets published, it transcribes it automatically as I record. The only problem is that this script, which is pretty annoying, only works if you have internet, if it's connected to the internet, and
Mm.
my Wi-Fi here in Italy is pretty bad.
Right.
So basically I recorded it like an hour and 40 minutes because some like with all the different, like the episode in itself was 55 minutes edited, but with all like the rough recording was an hour and 40 minutes, and in the end it actually recorded only 30 minutes.
Oh my
so
God.
so I basically had to re-record. It actually was, in a way, was kind of good because it helped me realize that it was a bit longer the first time around. So I also cut some of the stuff that I recorded the first time and I made it shorter on purpose.
Well, I
But yeah,
find with
it took me
anything,
an extra hour.
the nextra. So number one, that sucks. I guess the lesson is always record offline. And then the good thing with the script is you can just upload the file, right? And it still does the whole transcription after the fact.
Yeah.
So you're definitely better off to do it that way.
So
But the second or third time you do something, like I don't, you pretty much agreed to this, but like, yeah, it sucks to have to re-record. But from all of my experience, and this goes for podcasting, writing, speaking, whatever, the second or third time you do it, it gets better, right? Because like you get familiar, it comes out a little smoother. Now, you probably don't want to do that for every episode, but yeah.
Yeah, no, and I went the super standard route of just using QuickTime audio recording, super easy. And
Well, and Descript can do all that like after stuff anyways, right? It has like effects that'll remove, like you said, it removes background noise, and you can edit the ums and the filler words really quickly. So yeah, record offline, I guess. Although when I used to do my podcast with guests, I used to use Riverside. Well, I guess obviously you have to be online one way or another, right? If you're interviewing somebody. But for a solo episode like what you do, probably safest to record offline. So let me ask you two things. Number one is, how did it go? Are you seeing any like initial results or anything? And number two is, I feel like podcasts are one of those things that so many people want to do, but they just are like too intimidated or nervous to ever start. So like, what was it like? Did it take a lot of upfront work? Was it as hard as you thought?
Yeah, good question. So first, as far as traction, I mean, I'm seeing a couple downloads, like 20 downloads so far, so not much, just because I just posted it on social media. I posted it today to the newsletter, so I might see a couple more. But for the first episode, I wasn't expecting anything, and I'm actually not expecting anything at all. Even if it's the first year, I'm not expecting anything. It's something that one of those infinite games that I'm reading the book anyways, and I like it, I enjoy it. And I've also realized while recording, like actually making the podcast helps me in a couple of ways. First, it helps me understand the stuff that I read much, much better. It helps me connect ideas to all other stuff that I've read. And it also helps me with the communication aspect, especially for me as a non-native, like reading the book and hearing my voice, and also re-listening to the whole episode as I'm editing helps me improve my communication skills, my pronunciation. So it's kind of a multi-positive effect.
I mean, it must be a great way to internalize what you're learning from the book, right? It's one thing to read it. It's like, I remember in undergrad, there were these, I would basically like tutor a couple kids in my own math class because they didn't know what day it was. And so I would study, and then the day before, I'd give them like a 1 hour like master class. And at first they were like super thankful, and well, they were thankful the whole time. But what I realized after doing it the first time, I was like, wow, that's a really good way to like internalize everything I've studied, say it out loud in my own voice, blah, blah, blah. And like you said, I think that's what Gary Vee would say, which is like, be prepared to eat shit, aka get like no results for like multiple years before anything happens. So I think the key is to pick something exactly as you're doing, which is what's something you're going to be doing anyways, and so it's not like that much more of an effort to go that much further and stay committed to it, even if there's no results, right?
Yeah, and if you can stack some additional benefits on top of it, like the secondary benefits that I mentioned, even better. Like the other things, so these are some benefits that I get from doing it, but even before actually sitting down and recording it, I realized that first I take better notes uh, on the books that I read, because I know that the notes that I'm going to take, I will use them for the podcast to like know what I'm going to say for each of the highlights that I read. And for people who don't know, the podcast is called Writers of Influence. It's basically me reading biographies or books on marketing, copywriting, and commenting on my thoughts, connecting ideas, and so on. So basically, it's kind of like a monologue reading kind of podcast. And the other thing is also it helps me highlight fewer passages from the book, rather than, because I tend to highlight a lot of stuff typically, while knowing that I'm going to record a podcast on it and I'm going to have to read the highlights. I'm not going to highlight like 80% of the book, right? Otherwise it's going to be way too long. So it helps me focus on just the stuff that that sparks ideas and connections.
And I'm sure over time you'll get better at that too, right? Like finding the perfect amount of quotes and whatever. I listened to probably the first third of it, and for the purposes of our listeners, I'll share the feedback I shared with you. Number one, I don't think I mentioned this to you. I think the picture's friggin' awesome. Like, I don't know how you made it, like if it was like Mid-Journey or whatever.
Mid-Journey.
Yeah. Really cool picture for whatever it's worth. I thought it was good. Yeah, the biggest piece of advice I gave to Chris was that, especially for the first couple episodes, I would have like a 1 or 2 sentence intro telling me what the heck I'm in for, right? So like, what is this, right? You kind of just got right into it, which is good. I hate when like people hem and haw at the beginning, or they have like all these, sponsors at the beginning or whatever. You kind of got right into it. But at no point until maybe the end did you say like, hey, I'm Chris, I'm a copywriter. In this podcast, I read books and I share my findings, blah, 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 right? Like could be 10, 20 seconds. The reason for that is, especially at the beginning, people might be finding you eventually randomly on like iTunes or whatever the hell it's called now, right? Apple Music or whatever, Spotify. And so giving them even just a quick snippet of what they can expect, I think would help. Down the road, you might be able to get rid of it once it becomes like kind of well known, right? But anyways, other than that, I thought it was super interesting. I thought the intro was, I thought once you got into the groove, like once you got 5-10 minutes in, you kind of fell into the groove and you talked a little bit more naturally and stuff like that too. But that's just how it works. And also every episode will be that much better, that much more confident. So yeah, man, it's great. I'm interested to hear about how it goes down the road.
Yeah. So yeah, for next 2 weeks, while I'm here in Italy, I'm not going to record another YouTube video. So for the channel, and as the podcast also, I'm publishing the podcast also on YouTube, just the audio basically. So I'm going to double down on the podcast while I'm here in Italy. So for next 2 weeks, I'm going to post episode 2, which is basically part 2 of the same book.
So podcast episode 2, okay.
And also I've got, I want to do like a 1 week experiment, and this came from an idea of an article that I read, and we'll post the link. I'll send you the link after to post. I don't know if I shared it with you. Basically a guy that put up an Etsy store and used ChatGPT AI to create like the story of the store, the graphics, the visuals, the t-shirt graphics. So the idea was basically I see myself creating like around the Writers of Influence brand, which is under Conversion Alchemy anyway. I see myself kind of creating like a universe, like some kind of world building stuff. And I have a couple ideas. One is kind of create an Etsy store with t-shirts with like phrases on like copywriting, funny quotes on copywriting, advertising and stuff. So I want to do a 1 week experiment where I already have the store set up. I just need to create a couple t-shirts ideas, and I was working on it today. So yeah, I want to put on a couple of t-shirt ideas, and with Etsy, there's a nice thing called Printify. I don't know if you know about it, but basically like a print-on-demand thing.
Yeah.
So
There's a bunch
you
of
don't have to
those
do
now
anything.
too.
Yeah. And so
So Etsy
that's another thing. Yeah.
store test.
Yeah.
Okay. My only comment on that is, like, the store is only going to do as well as the traffic you can send it, right? So the first thing that comes into my head is, like, in 1 week you're probably not going to get all that many results.
It was mostly like a 1 week in the sense of putting it up.
Oh, just like getting it together, and at least
like
you have somewhere to. At least you have somewhere to point people. I mean, the great thing that you should steal from Senra, who does the Founders podcast, is have an affiliate link to all the books that you read, right? Like, so that's an easy way to do it. And then once you get more listeners, being able to say at the end of the episode, hey, if you want to support the show, or if you like any of these quotes, check out the Etsy store for, some custom t-shirts or whatever. So it at the very least, it's good that you have a plan of where you might go with monetization. So cool. All right.
I have actually another goal. Since I have more time and not working on client stuff, I want to redo those productized services landing pages, so 3 pages.
Redo productized services landing pages. Are they like big overhauls or?
I don't have those pages right now. I just have the cards where you can basically buy on my Get in Touch page. So I want to create 1 page for each, and also kind of restructure the products.
Right.
But it's not going to be like super long pages.
Got it. All right. So podcast episode 2, Etsy store, and redo the productized services landing pages. Or it sounds like create productized services landing pages.
Yeah.
Okay. On my end, it's been a pretty good 2 weeks.
You had 20 plus calls.
Yeah.
Cold calls and Lettergrowth, Discord outreach.
So
the fundraising.
Yeah. So I'll give a quick summary. Like, so we sell immigration SaaS. We continue. Like, our graph keeps going up to the right. We keep adding law firms every 1 to 2 weeks. The problem is, as we get busier, it just takes more time, right? To do demos, do sales calls, do onboarding and training calls and stuff like that. So things are actually going quite well. The problem is that some days I can't hit the cold call limit because I'm spending too much time on demos and stuff all day, right? Which is, I guess, a good problem to have. So I might change that to but then the thing is, when I do have like a quieter day, I can easily pump out like 50. So I might say like 30 plus cold calls 3 times per week. So at least every week.
Maybe I would either set like a lower minimum goal per day, or you can set a goal per week.
Right.
That's probably the best.
Yeah, that's it. The reason why I like the per day is because it's so much easier to track. But yeah, that might be more predictable.
If you can ask what's the very minimum amount of calls that I can do even when I'm super busy with demos. Like, do I have 30 minutes to send out 5?
The problem with it, like most other tasks, is like the calls per hour I can do is so much higher when you have a bigger chunk of time, right? If you have 25 minutes, I could probably get 10 to 15, right? Whereas if I have 60 minutes and I get into the groove, I can like more than double that, right? Even though it's only double the amount of time. You get in a groove, you keep moving, you get a good call, now you're feeling good. You don't
have the switching costs.
Yeah, the switching costs as well. So let me try, I'm going to stick to the 30 plus 3 times per week. Because I find it's either like if I have a packed day, it's really tough to get in a good chunk of time. But then when I have like an afternoon off, I can crank out like a whole bunch, So anyways, that's just like growing pains, right? Lettergrowth Discord outreach, I did some of that. So Lettergrowth is a tool that, or I guess it's like a part community, part website, that Chris and I use to find other newsletter owners that like to do cross promotions. So you cross promote and you help everybody can build their subscriber list, stuff like that. So I posted in the Discord. I also went through their channel and reached out to a few people. So I have a few more lined up over the next month, because I only post once a week now. I only email once a week now, as do you, which means I can only really promote one per week. I guess I could promote multiple, put one halfway through, put one at the end or whatever. But for right now, based on how many people are responding, it's working out to about one per week, which is kind of nice. I'm also trying to do a better job of promoting my email lists, right? So I have one like through Solopreneur Grind, which is more like personal, like, hey, this is my life as Josh, who's an entrepreneur building a tech business. And then we also have, because I post a lot on LinkedIn about immigration, I'm trying to promote our Visto email list a little bit more as well. Visto's our tech company. So I'm really liking, I sat down for a little bit and kind of like rethought social media, content strategy and stuff like that. I really think the best strategy that people can do is like post all your free stuff and then try to convert everyone to email list, and then continue to add value and promote your paid stuff from the email list, right? Yeah. So anyways, that's going well. I'm going to say I still want to do a little bit more Lettergrowth outreach. So I'll do one additional Discord Lettergrowth promo after a few weeks.
I've seen one of your LinkedIn posts, like a newsletter that you posted on LinkedIn as a post, right? You got a shit ton of comments there.
Well, so the other thing I have is I have a LinkedIn newsletter. Like LinkedIn has a newsletter feature, and I have over I think 3,000 or 4,000 subscribers on that newsletter. The problem is it doesn't convert super high. I actually had a conversation with people in the Lettergrowth Discord about this a couple months ago. LinkedIn doesn't convert that high to get people off the platform. So I have a subscriber list of 4,000 on LinkedIn. I'll post there every 2 weeks. It gets 2,000 views, but 2 people will join my email list, which is, I guess, 2 more than 0, right? But for whatever reason, people like to read on LinkedIn and then they don't really move off LinkedIn. I mean, that's fine, right? There's only so much you can do, at least they're reading. But I've kind of solidified the strategy a little bit. Post on LinkedIn, post on TikTok, post on Shorts, try to drive everyone to email list, have a really good weekly email list. I have a weekly one for SG, I have a bi-weekly one for Visto, and where we, promote our other products from there. And then doesn't matter what happens on the socials, you always have your email list. So anyways, where am I going with this? Great question. So we haven't closed our fundraising round because it's been so slow in the summer. People are on holidays, taking people time to get back. I think we probably will in the next week or two, but I'm not going to keep it as a goal because it's kind of 70% out of my control, right? We like to set goals that are within our control, right? Numerical and quantitative and within our control.
Smart.
So the next 2 weeks, so I'll say 30 plus cold calls 3 times per week, 1 additional Discord Lettergrowth promo and outreach, because usually what I do is I look through the previous posters and I outreach to anyone there. And what's my third goal? I don't know. I'm trying to get a good cadence up for posting shorts, right? So the other good strategy that I've kind of found is we go live every 2 weeks. On my LinkedIn, I also go live every 2 weeks to talk about immigration, and then I cut those videos up into snippets and post on Shorts and post on TikTok. So I need to get that cadence finalized. Snippet video posting, because I want it to be more consistent. Yeah. What I've noticed, because I've been doing it on and off on YouTube and TikTok for a while, is I find that YouTube is tough in the sense that if you stop, it's harder to get going in terms of views. With TikTok, like because I have a lot of followers, I can not post for 3 weeks, post a video, and if it's good, it'll get a lot of views. With YouTube, if I don't post for a while and I post, it's like crickets, right? You kind of like got to start posting again consistently. So maybe that's a difference in their algorithm. I don't know. But anyways, so that's where I'm at. Things are good. Couple growing pains as per usual, and just trying to, solidify a good strategy. So with that being said, do we want to get into the books of the week?
Yeah.
You want to go first?
I've actually finished for the second time, but this time I listened to it. The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, which was one of the very first books that I got into, like actually got me into reading seriously back in 2014 or something. Yeah, I have to say, listening to it after so long, it was very refreshing, and there's a lot of stuff that I took away. I recommend it in general for anyone who is kind of like especially in a transition phase of life, when you kind of have to reflect on like your beliefs, everything that's going on in your life, your mindset as well, how to approach these changes. And one thing that I started doing in the morning, I realized that I really enjoy, typically in the morning I work out the first kind of 2 hours in the morning, and that's when I listen to audiobooks. Right, I used to like listen to like business books or podcasts, and I started instead the first hour and a half listening to more like philosophical books in the first part of the day, just because I don't know, it puts me in a more like reflective, open mindset overall.
Mm-hmm.
So I finished this one, and then now kind of on the same line, I'm listening to this book, which is kind of the mindset philosophy of the samurai. It's called Hagakure, and it's very good actually. It's like divided in like 3 books, I think. Each book has got like 150 short passages. And
how do you spell that?
Pretty varied as well. Hagakure.
Okay, I'll have that in the show notes.
I think Hagakure, the secret wisdom of the samurai, I think.
The secret.
That's pretty good.
You know what I thought the other day, Chris? So I've got into a pretty good morning routine, and I go to the gym right away as well in the morning, and I've been listening to like business podcasts, usually a mix of founders, and once in a while I like the My First Million. It's a little more, if I'm in the mood for something a little bit more casual. But I was thinking the other day too, like maybe for part of it I should just not listen to anything. Like, I don't know. Should we have more like silence throughout the day where we can just like kind of let our minds wander? Because my problem is, as soon as I hit my computer and start working, like my 9 to 5 or whatever, it's like pretty go, right? And then at night I'm hanging out with Sam, we're watching something, like you're listening to people, you're watching something. So I'm listening to these podcasts, which are great, and I find them valuable. But I'm almost thinking like, hey, maybe for part of that morning routine, should not listen to anything, just be with yourself. I don't know. I just had that thought the other day. I figured I'd
totally
ask.
Makes sense. I typically have like at least the first 40 minutes as soon as I wake up, that I just get my coffee, read, and kind of journal. So that's when I'm not listening to anything, and then I go to the gym.
That's good.
I also, like, after I'm back from the gym and I got my breakfast, I also meditate 20 minutes every day. So that's also another time when I'm actually not listening or not doing anything super focused. So I balance it like that.
What kind of meditation?
I do Vipassana meditation, which is what I learned at the 10-day meditation retreat. So yeah, I've always been doing that since 2019.
You like it?
Yeah. It's
Is that the
it's
one
kind
where
of
you pick like a something, I forget what it's called, and you like repeat it over and
no,
over?
the mantra
Right.
one, where you have kind of sound that you have to repeat, is the transcendental meditation,
Ah, right,
which,
right.
which is the one that I was interested in trying, but you have to pay. You have to do like a 4-day pay for a 4-day course or something. I don't know. It sounds like a bit of a scam. It's only Hollywood people who do it for some reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I like Vipassana. Vipassana is kind of, for me, it became kind of like a workout that you do for your mind. It's not just meditation in the sense of uh, getting rid of anxiety, focusing. It's actually like a real workout. There's a practice that you have to follow, and yeah, it's kind of like a muscle that you have to work every day, and then it becomes
Cool.
automatic.
How do you, is it Vipasana? Vipassana?
Two S's.
Okay, I'm just throwing it in the show notes if people want to take a look.
Yeah, there are centers all over the world, and it's basically free. It's a donation based. So at the end of the 10-day retreat, if you want, you can leave a donation. But basically,
Right. Cool. On my end, I finished probably my third or fourth read of Shoe Dog, which has to be, in my opinion, I don't know if you agree or not, I think it's a top 3 book. I think it's like a top 3 business book. It's just so good. I've probably read it, might have been my 4th time. I don't know what year it came out, but usually every like 2 years I'm like, all right, I gotta go read it again, you know what I mean? Just such a good story, the way he tells it, the details he goes into, how personal it gets, the grind, you know, the ups and downs. Such a good book. So I finished that. Yeah.
did you listen to the founders episode on that? I'm curious to see.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if I did. I probably should, but I mean, if
It'd be
you
interesting to see if you highlight the same ideas, thoughts, or if you two have different ideas.
yeah, that's a good idea. I probably should. Although from the Founders podcast, I'm getting a lot of good suggestions for books I now want to read, right? George Lucas. Like, initially, I think of George Lucas, I love Star Wars, and I'm like, what do I need to read his book? Like, he's an art guy, you know what I mean? But the way David talks about it in the story, it's like, okay, there's obviously some value there. So, anyways, so I finished Shoe Dog. Last night, I also finished Rework by, I don't remember who. They're 2 founders of a company called Basecamp. Have you read that?
No, I heard the name, but
I think you'd like it, although it's mostly like there's some sections talking about like entrepreneurialism, right? Hiring and managing people and blah blah blah. So if you strictly want to stay as a solopreneur, but even still, you work with contractors and stuff, right? So that could come into play. Anyways, I thought it was a really good book. It's a pretty easy read. It's basically super, like, it's like 3 or 4 sections, kind of like themes, right? Like hiring and, you know, starting your company, you know, blah blah blah, and then it has chapters that are like 1 to 2 pages, so it's very quick hit. It kind of reminds me of The Hard Thing About Hard Things, right? By whatever his name was, Horowitz, I think, or I'm trying to look because I know I have it behind me. Where is it? Anyways, it kind of reminds me of that in the sense that it's pretty punchy. It's like, okay, 2 pages I'm going to talk about this. 1.5 pages I'm going to talk about this. 1.5, you know what I mean? Good writing. They don't drag on. Very practical. Not as much storytelling. Normally I like storytelling, but this I've found really interesting because they have a very strong view on how to approach your business, how you should start it, how you should run it, how you should operate it. And it's pretty... it's probably somewhat controversial because it goes against kind of the norms of what we read about on social media and stuff like that. But yeah, I highly recommend it. I thought it was great, a very easy read, pretty quick read. I want to say it's like 150 to 175 pages, so yeah, I recommend it.
Nice. I might take you up on that.
Anything else, Chris, before we wrap up?
No, that's all from me.
Alrighty. All of those will be mentioned in the show notes, whether you're watching on YouTube or whether you're listening on your favorite podcast platform. Make sure to like, subscribe, all that fun stuff if you haven't already. Helps with the podcast. If you want to jump on Chris and or I's email lists that we've mentioned, make sure to, again, check out the show notes. We'll have links to both of our email lists there. And other than that, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. See you later. All right.